You are welcome to, while the presenters are sharing, to send your comments or questions through the chat. And now here I'm going to give the floor to Alexandra to present the facilitators.
Hi, good morning, everyone. We will have three presenters today, three speakers. We have today the opportunity to have Ina Yurga. She is the International Coordination of the Menstrual Hygiene Day. She has quite a lot of experience in public policies and in public health as well. And she will present us It's Time for Action, Menstrual Hygiene Day 2019. And it's a very nice opportunity because if everybody remember the 28th of May, it's the Menstrual Hygiene Day. So we wanted that all of you are prepared in advance for our big campaign. So thanks, Ina, to be here. We have as well Mina. She's our disability inclusion advisor. She works not only for Federation, she works as well for the International Committee of the Red Cross. And Mina is part of the Protection, Gender and Inclusion unit here in the Federation. She has as well a great experience in humanitarian context and in inclusion, and it's great. She will as well present disability inclusive for WASH. What is it? Why is it important, and how can we do it? And I will be the last presenter, and I will present Federation Scaling and Promoting Menstrual Hygiene Management to have an update of our menstrual hygiene global tools, our community of practice, and what we have done and what is next to do in menstrual hygiene. So thanks so much. I will pass the facilitation to Ina. Welcome, Ina. Are you there?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Alex. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. Thank you, first of all, IFRC, for hosting this webinar and inviting us to present. And I hope for the next 15 to 20 minutes, it's inspiring for all participants who joined this morning or this afternoon to take action on Menstrual Hygiene Day. Yeah, great. So I'm not so sure if I can skip the slides. Yes, I can. Perfect. Okay, for everyone who's new and never heard of Menstrual Hygiene Day, which I hope are only few, here's just a quick summary. It was first celebrated in 2014. It was initiated by WASH United, the NGO I'm working for, and we're also serving as the International Secretariat. We have more than 500 organizations building the partnership base for MH Day, and this includes NGOs, social businesses from all sectors. And what MH Day actually is what we say it's an advocacy platform. It's an opportunity to bring together everyone to break the silence, raise awareness on the issue of MHM, and also specifically to engage decision makers to increase political priority and catalyze action. So it's often we see as a very good opportunity. And for those who wonder why it is on the 28th May, which is really around the corner, it's 28 is the average length of the cycle, and 5 for the month of May is the average duration of a period. So it's also very easy to remember. Just a little bit a snapshot what we did in the previous years before moving on. Is that MH Day has been growing over the last 5 years, and it's been really tremendously growing, and especially last year it was the biggest than ever before. There were more than 500 events in more than 70 countries. We had a massive online reach with 130 million people. This was definitely due to everybody tweeting and sharing and liking. So it's not only one person with a big following, but many, many people contributing to that. We have also had very relevant contributions to MH Day, such as from the World Bank, the German Ministry, Melinda Gates had a tweet, UNICEF, as well the IFRC, and you can see in the bottom right your campaign materials that was created, and I think Alex will also tell a little bit more. What made the day such a success last year was that everyone was really using the same campaign hashtag, the messages, and also the ready-to-use materials, or having using the similar design. So it looked like a coherent campaign, being if you're in Rwanda, being if you're in the Philippines, or in Iraq. So it looked like everybody contributed. And there's also image from the Philippines, and I know Pao, who has been very important to organize this event, is also here on the webinar. So welcome. What I would like to present to you for Menstrual Hygiene Day is the theme, the ABCs, how you can contribute. We'll get more to that. I have a slide on M&E. Maybe it's not so interesting, but we'll include that for later. And most important, what you can expect by when from the Secretariat. The theme for 2019 is It's Time for Action, such as the webinar theme today. So over the last 5 years, the themes have been around breaking the silence, starting the conversation, and also around empowerment. And with menstrual hygiene management being much more in the focus of global media, and you might have known that there's even a movie around periods and menstruation won an Oscar this year. There's definitely a lot of talk right now, but the talk shouldn't stop from there, and it should move into action. So that's why we said it's time for action. And everybody can take action, no matter how big or small, and we're all in this together. So being in the government, schools, media, corporate, and international NGOs such as you. So for your perspective, I extracted some actions that you could take, and I call it the ABCs, so it's easier to remember. For the first A, it's called the Action for Menstrual Hygiene Education, and Alex was so kind to share this also prior to you. This is an initiative by us where we want to collect the numbers of girls educated on menstrual hygiene around the globe in 2018, as well projected goals for 2019. Why? Because there's no global baseline data, and when we have established a number, and it will be incomplete for sure, but with this first number we're trying to gather, we are able to catalyze advocacy and accountability and action. So the media is always very interested, donors are interested, and also governments are really interested to know what's happening. So we will release the global number on MH Day, but leading up to MH Day, we will celebrate the work that organizations have done to advance education. The deadline is today, so if you haven't done so from your country, it would be great if you can go and contribute your numbers and to this under this link. I can also put it into the chat box later. If you need a little bit more time than today, please let me know. I think we can give you an extension as well. B stands for bracelet, and the bracelet is a very nice small thing that you can integrate into your activities as an individual, but also for events where you hand this over. The bracelet can be any local beads that you have, as long as it's 28, thereof 5 in pink or red. And you can, wearing the bracelet is a really good sign that you support menstruation, that you can generate conversations by, hey, what are you wearing there? And also committing to action. We particularly see it as a very nice tool to engage stakeholders, such as donor governments, and others in your event by as a sign for appreciation that they're there, and it's also a great photo opportunity for the media. So very, very small thing that you could do. A very exciting thing that we're doing this year is C, and it means contribute to the highlight video. In the previous years, and you see on the top right, we always created a video. This was a rapper from last year, before we had a poetess. And this year, we want to do something different. We want to source video contributions from partners all around the world and cut this together and to show really that menstruation is a global issue. So this is a fun way that you can do, and it's very, very simple and easy. Sorry. So what is your ask to you? So the theme of the video was we ask women and girls, but also boys and men, what is needed to create a world where women and girls are no longer limited because of their periods? Or slightly rephrased, what has to change so that women and girls can realize their full potential? So the video can be should be a word or a sentence, and it can be painted or written on a banner. It can be spoken. It can be danced. It can be formed with your body, like maybe some remembers like YMCA. As long as it's creative and fun. And if you can record a small video on your mobile phones or on any other devices and send to us before 12th of May, we will source that and cut together to a fun global video released on menstrual and shortly before Menstrual Hygiene Day. So I hope you contribute and get inspired to do something fun. D stands for digital or social media, and many of you are also active on social media, partly also creating own campaigns. So on the top there are the two main hashtags we want to use this year. It's MHDay 2019, and then it's time for action. Of course, there are other hashtags in your local language or for any specific locally. But if you integrate those hashtags, you're part of the global campaign, and we also will find you. We have a set of social media materials for you. I'll show you in the next slide. But if you create something own, think about engaging content and integrate the MHDay logo design system so it looks like a coherent campaign. One of the ideas we saw in the last 2 years coming up very, very strongly was online petitions where people can really take action through social media by supporting petitions. So E stands for events, and this is very much depending on where you are based, what your programs are like, and what you want to actually influence and take action on. So from the Secretariat, we don't have a mandatory thing that you should do on Menstrual Hygiene Day in terms of events. We just ask you to think about how you can weave in kind of an action component. So many of you are engaged in schools, so we've seen MHDay events doing education for girls, but also demand actions for schools through rallies and petitions, or even donations of products. If you were more engaged with the communities or in the field, education sessions, period parties, movie screenings are some of the creative ideas that came up. Again, rallies and also great, and reusable pad making. So some of the inspirations are there. I hope if you create an event, you can register it on our website, so it appears on the global map. There's other stakeholders you are usually engaging with. So this is just some hints. So with the government, think about the advocacy goal that you want to reach for the government to take action or to do more about. some of you, and it is always really great, work with influencers and individuals and parliamentarians, first ladies, religious leaders, musicians, actors. They've been always really featured prominently and quite powerful to bring the local message across. And media partners, not to be forgotten, who can write articles or report from your event. So again, what I said, this is really all up to you. There's no description, as long we hope you're creative and effective in creating an effective and fun event. This is, so here, this is something I'm really excited about, and this is the very, very brand new materials that we're releasing today. So we have a set of materials for events and a set of social materials, social media materials. They come in English, French, Spanish, and for this year also Arabic, because when I was in Lebanon with Alex and representatives from the national societies, we heard it loud and clear that Arabic is an important addition and a growing area for menstrual hygiene. So the materials, they have 3 themes. One is about stigma, one is about products, and one is about education. And what is most important is that you can see at the bottom, there's a white space. So we create a set of materials with the IFRC logo, but and Alex will share this with you all in the email. And there's space definitely to include your national society logos and also other partner logos. So it makes it completely your campaign materials, and I hope you like this idea. Yeah, and we will release the highlight video, hopefully with your beautiful contributions. If you want to create your own materials, there's a design system guide. Many organizations used that last year, so here you can see an example how an organization used their own photo to be integrated in the materials. And on the top left, there's also something very similar. So there's a very, very simple design system and the logos available that you can create materials in your own, with your own languages or with your own images or graphics, and still make it look, it's coherent. Other materials that you can always use is action guide, which we're currently working on, which will be very similar to the presentation. And there's also the infographics on multiple issues that you can find on our website. IFRC is also preparing some global tools and had also done last year, and I think Alex will show some of them in her presentation. So also make use of what is available from there. And lastly, so to almost conclude my session, I think that's really important for you to know is what will the Secretary do by when. So today is the deadline for contributing to the Action for Menstrual Hygiene Education. Also today we'll have all the materials ready to go live on the website later this afternoon. And all the other information is following. And yeah, we're looking forward to 28 May. It will be a very busy month of action on the issue. And that's my last slide. So I hope together we can make it the biggest and most impactful MH Day ever. Here below you find my contact details. The website is also pretty clear. And yeah, looking forward to be in touch and learn what national societies and individuals in your countries are doing on MH Day. Thank you so much. Looking forward to your questions later. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ina, for this very nice presentation. I am excited to see these new brand IC materials and infographics. Thanks so much. And yes, I think together we can make it the biggest and most impactful menstrual hygiene day ever, hopefully, with all our 191 national societies. We will not take now questions. We will move forward to a MENA presentation. Yeah, if you're okay, you please stay with us till the end of the webinar. And I will let now the facilitations to Mina. Please, Mina, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me?
Yes, Mina, go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Alex, also from my part for this opportunity to talk about inclusion of persons with disabilities and what that means in WASH. And of course, all of this naturally applies to menstrual hygiene management as well. But today I'll just be giving more of an overview on what we mean by disability, what the implications are when we are inclusive or are excluding people with disabilities from WASH, and a few tips at the end on what to consider in order to be inclusive. You can go ahead to the next slide. Thanks. So firstly, to explain, it's really important that we understand what we mean by disability, and everybody is on the same page regarding this. So here you see the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and how it describes a disability. So you'll see, first of all, that persons with disabilities are those that have long-term physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairments. So often when we think of a person with disability, the first thing that comes to our mind is the visible disability, which is often the person using crutches or a cane or a wheelchair. But it's really important to recognize the range of different kinds of impairments, which can be mental health and psychosocial impairments. It can be intellectual impairments, which are like learning disabilities, for example. Often you might think of someone with Down syndrome, for example, or sensory impairments, which are vision and hearing impairments. So someone who is blind or who is deaf or who has low vision or hard of hearing, for example. Then the other important part about disability is it's not about the impairment itself. It's about the interaction between the impairments and the barriers that exist in the environment and in society. So what it says in the, sorry, can you go back, please? So what it says in the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, it says that disability is an evolving concept and that disability results from the interaction between persons with impairments and attitudinal and environmental barriers that hinder their full and effective participation in society on an equal basis with others. So importantly here, we're talking about the range of all the impairments, which I described earlier. Then understanding what the barriers are. So environmental barriers can be, for example, in the physical infrastructure. It could be stairs to enter a building. It could be a ramp that is not accessible, that could be too steep. It can also be lack of accessible pavements on the street or lack of accessible transportation. And so those are in the physical sort of infrastructure. Then environmental barriers are also communication, can be related to communication. So if you think of someone who has a vision impairment or who is blind, they would not right now be able to see the text on the screen, which is why I'm reading the text. So that if we do have any people online who have a vision impairment, I'm reading the text, basically converting it into an audio format so that they can access it. Whereas someone who is deaf, they would use sign language for communication, or also written format or pictures and so on. So if we are not using a variety of communication methods, there can be barriers for people with sensory impairments to access information. An important aspect too are websites and the architecture of websites and electronic communication should be accessible to software that people with vision impairments use. Importantly, there are many attitudinal barriers, and these are significant. They're often an underlying reason also for all other barriers and for the inclusion of persons with disabilities in their communities. So in many contexts, there are negative stereotypes about people with disabilities, or just a lack of information or ignorance about what disability is. But there's a lot of stigma associated with disability. Often in many contexts, it's thought that disability, or if a child with a disability is born, perhaps the parents have done something bad to deserve this, and that causes a lot of stigma, and that the parents and the child with a disability face, and often as a result they may hide the child with a disability, for example. This is just one example. Another example could be in the workplace. Many people with disabilities face a lot of attitudinal barriers when applying for a job, because we often think in society, people often think that people with disabilities don't have the capacity to contribute to society, and so we might not see them as being active people in the society that can contribute through work, through education, and so on. Okay, next slide, please. So I've talked about the barriers, so kind of gone through those, but just to kind of recap and then frame it in terms of what is accessibility. So here on this slide, you'll see that accessibility, as it's described in the Convention of Rights of Persons with Disability, it says that accessibility ensures that persons with disabilities have access to the physical environment, to transportation, to information and communications, including information and communications technologies and systems, and to other facilities and services on an equal basis with others. So this is very important for our work. We need to consider all the dimensions of accessibility in order to ensure that our programming, whether it's WASH or health or shelter or any other kind of programming, is accessible to persons with disabilities. So I described earlier the physical environment, which could be the infrastructure, could be the streets, transportation, means of transportation and access to transportation needs to be accessible. The information, the format that we use for information and communication needs to be accessible, and that includes ICT, so information technologies and communications technologies. And importantly, facilities and services. People with disabilities should have access to these just the same as everybody else. Next slide, please. So here are a few statistics. So globally, though, there's a huge lack of data on persons with disabilities, but there are some statistics that we generally refer to, and it's important to, first of all, recognize that people with disabilities, although a minority in the global population, it's a really large minority. So according to the WHO World Report on Disability from 2011, 15% of the world's population are people with disabilities. And of this 15%, 80%, so almost all of persons with disabilities live in developing countries, which in terms of our emergency programming, for example, or humanitarian action, is primarily the context where we work. So there's a large number of persons with disabilities in those contexts where we're working. Disability is strongly linked to poverty. So statistics indicate that 1 in 5 persons in contexts where there's a lot of poverty have disability. It's important to consider also children with disabilities. So statistics show that 93 to 150 million children under 15 years of age have a disability globally. And what's really important in terms of WASH is that, and menstrual hygiene management, is that children with disability are less likely to be able to access education. This is coming back again to the barriers, so they could be related to barriers in the transportation to get to the school. Maybe the school is not physically accessible. Perhaps the school is not providing education in formats that people with different kinds of impairments can access. And so as there are many WASH programs specifically in school, it's important to understand that that may mean that children with disabilities are not accessing that WASH programming if they're not in the schools. Next slide, please. So as you're all familiar with the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goal number 6 on ensuring availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. So this, that for all is really important. So we have to include persons with disabilities. And so far in the Millennium Development Goals, persons with disabilities were left out. And there's quite a lot of indication to show that people with disabilities have consistently been left out of development and humanitarian programming. And the SDGs are really working towards correcting that. So firstly, the goal is to achieve universal and equitable access to safe and affordable drinking water for all, including people with disabilities, and achieving access to adequate and equitable sanitation and hygiene for all, and with special attention to the needs of women and girls and those in vulnerable situations. And importantly here, it's important to remember here that women and girls are also women and girls with disabilities. So we often talk about people with disabilities, but it's really important to remember also the gender dimension within, or the diversity within, the population of persons with disabilities. Next slide, please. So what is the significance of inclusive WASH? So first of all, when we are inclusive, this means that we're ensuring the impartiality and non-discrimination in our programming, which is a fundamental value and principle within our work. Inclusive WASH is important for promoting safety and dignity. There are some stories, persons with disabilities talking about their experiences in accessing toilets when they're not accessible to them, and how that affects their dignity when they have to crawl to the toilet, and you can imagine sometimes the cleanliness of the toilet and what that means in terms of hygiene and safety as well. So ensuring that we have inclusive and accessible latrines, for example, is important for safety and dignity, and it's not just a health and hygiene aspect. It's also important for promoting self-sufficiency and autonomy, so making sure that people with disabilities can independently access water and sanitation facilities without having to rely on someone to help them. So especially in emergency or humanitarian contexts, where many times the support mechanisms within the community breaks down, then it's very important that we're creating systems where people with disabilities can be self-reliant, just like everybody else. Inclusive WASH is important for accessing employment, livelihoods, and education. So it's well documented that children and adults with disabilities have often not been able to go to school because the schools have not had accessible sanitation facilities, so toilets. And those who have nevertheless gone to school and managed the whole day without using the toilets, they often, it may result in health problems with kidneys and so on as they grow older. Next slide, please. So some tips, just some really basic considerations for how to make sure that WASH program is inclusive. And these are really basic and very and really about accessibility. So first of all, when designing latrine blocks, you'll see a photo here which has a row of 6 latrines. And none of those can be accessed by a person with mobility limitations, as there's a step to get in. Also, the space is too small, for example, for someone with a wheelchair to access. And often the toilets are they have the slab and the hole, and that means that someone with mobility limitations would not be able to squat and use this toilet. So instead, next slide, please. So instead, make sure to design the latrines and water points to be accessible and inclusive. And here are just a couple of examples on what that could mean. So first of all, if there is a step to get into to access either the let's say the water pump or the latrine, make sure that there's a ramp, and you'll see that it's important here that the ramp has the appropriate grade. So it should not be too steep. Otherwise, for example, wheelchair users would not be able to get up. You'll also see that the ramp has handrails on the side, so this helps persons with any mobility limitations, also older people or perhaps pregnant mothers, but also people with vision impairment, or who are blind, as they can guide their way up. And you'll also see that it's wide, so there's enough space to for a wide wheelchair. And you'll see also at the top of the ramp that it's a flat area, so at least 30 centimeters of a flat area before the door, for example, to the latrine. On the left side, you'll see a picture of a barrier-free entrance. So first of all, the door opens out the way instead of towards, for example, if this was a latrine, towards the toilet. The door width is wide, at least 90 centimeters, and you'll see there's no threshold to go through the entrance. Next slide, please. What's important too is, especially for people who use a wheelchair, that there's enough space inside to be able to circulate with your wheelchair, so that you can close. From this picture, you'll see again that the door is opening out the ways, and you'll see that there's a rope across the door, which allows the person with a wheelchair, once they're inside, to be able to pull the door shut from the inside. And then once they're inside, there's enough space for their wheelchair and to be able to close the door. Next slide, please. So to remember also, it's not just about the accessibility from the physical aspect, as I mentioned earlier, but it's important that we're communicating also to all persons with disabilities. So considering hygiene promotion, that it's not enough to provide hygiene promotion or education to the family members or to others in the community. We have to make sure that we're also communicating directly with persons with disabilities. Next slide, please. And to do this, you can use a variety of formats of communication, and here I've listed some examples. So audio formats, sign language, pictures and pictograms, large print, braille, easy to read materials, and then also making sure that the information is available in easily accessed locations. So somewhere that also persons with disabilities with any kind of impairment or mobility limitation would be able to get to. Next, please. So here you see a picture of a typical a latrine or water and sanitation facilities within a community and as part of a household. So it's important when we're designing our programming or collecting any kind of data or doing assessments that we're including disability disaggregated data in the data collection, and that we're also considering accessibility requirements in all the assessments that we do. So we do need this data to, first of all, be able to assess whether persons with disabilities are accessing our programs or not, and in addition, what the barriers are for them to be able to, that might prevent them from accessing our services. Next, please. And lastly, not lastly, sorry, second last slide. In participation and consultation of persons with disabilities is a really valuable tool that we can use. So first of all, in principle, it's very important in a people-centric approach that we are ensuring the participation of persons themselves in the decision-making, and often persons with disabilities are overlooked in this kind of work. So we have to ensure that we're including persons with disabilities in that consultation, and so that their voice is heard. And in terms of also expertise, they are the best experts to inform us on what their needs are, and even to provide us solutions on how we can better provide services. Next, please. And lastly, it's very important that we build our own capacity to be able to, first of all, understand disability, what we mean by disability, what we mean by inclusion. So we must train staff and volunteers on disability-related issues. And in order to be successful in programming, it's important to also do awareness raising within the community on why it's important that we're including persons with disabilities among others, and why we're installing, for example, or supporting accessible water and sanitation facilities. So I think this was the last slide of her. No, one more slide, yes. So that was just a really brief summary on what is disability inclusion, what is disability, a few tips on what considerations to use in implementation. And here are just a few links for further resources. If you even just Google disability inclusive WASH, you'll see really a lot of information is out there and a lot of guidance. So I do encourage you to take a look at these links or search also for yourself for further information. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Mina. It's very good. I mean, it's not only that we understand that disability should be inclusive. I mean, in WASH, that's the explanation as well, what is it, why is it important, and how we can do it was very clear. We need to say as well that WASH and the Protection, Gender and Inclusion Department has been working very, very near and linked since a few years ago. And we are working as well on a position paper from WASH and Disability together with Mina. So this will come soon as well. So thank you so much. And we have good news as well. Sophie Van Halver, the Senior Disability Humanitarian Innovation Fund from ERLA manager, it's online. And we have some news that there is an upcoming HIV challenge from disability and older inclusion in WASH. Sophie, do you want to say a few words on that?
Hi, good morning all. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Yeah, thanks Mina for a great presentation. Yes, so I am from ELRA. I'll follow up with a link to this in the chat afterwards. And we, as part of our Humanitarian Innovation Fund, will be launching a challenge at the end of May. That'll be in the last week of May. And we will have a focus on MHM, and also a call more broadly looking at WASH and disability and older age inclusion. So I'd really encourage you to engage with that challenge, share it with your networks, and potentially apply if you have an interesting idea that you would like to develop or explore further. So more information will be online in the coming weeks. And as I said, I'll share the link to our website shortly.
Thanks so much, Sophie, for for the quick update on the Menstrual Hygiene and Disability Challenge. We are all looking forward for the challenge. In this, we are planning to apply. So, I have the last presentation and I have really short time, so I will move perhaps a little bit quicker than I should. What I wanted to cover in this presentation is a little bit of history of what we have done since 2014 till today. I wanted to show you the video that we will not see, but we will send to you the link of the video with the record of this webinar. Yeah, on the slides, it's as well the link. We will not have time to do it. We will go quick to get to know a little bit what the new RCRC menstrual hygiene guidelines and tools that you, and then we will invest a little bit time in where to find the menstrual hygiene information from the Red Cross and Red Crescent and how to share more. And the last is what we are planning to do next. So, a little bit of history is that globally there has been a growing number of national societies who were very actively including menstrual hygiene in emergency operations or as part of long-term programming, for example, washing schools or community-based health first aid or reproductive health programs. This is why federations started looking into improved solutions for menstrual hygiene. And in 2014, we started an operational research in East Africa, covering 4 countries: Burundi, Madagascar, Somaliland, and Uganda. The results from this menstrual hygiene operational research from these 4 Eastern African countries showed improvement in dignity, health, and knowledge after the distribution of menstrual hygiene kits and promotion of the menstrual hygiene. We work with 2,000 women and girls between 12 and 15, and we have done an initial consultation, baseline and market survey to understand the product, and the distribution with demonstration of 2 types of menstrual hygiene kits, disposable and reusable one. And after 3 months distribution, we have done a post-monitoring survey to understand the satisfaction of these products. These findings highlighted the importance of appropriate facilities, including safe and private spaces for maintaining hygiene and washing, changing and drying pads, but as well brought us to understand a little bit more about our different kits. Because till before that, Federation had very different names of kits, different content of kits, different kits. So what this case study and operational research brought to us was what are the different types of kits, who is responsible for the kit, what is the purpose of the different kits. So we agree in our kits, and now the kits are going to be in our emergency response catalog that we share not only in Federation as well with the International Committee of the Red Cross. I will not go in detail of these slides, but it's only that this is our main conclusion, and this you can find it as well in our guideline and tools. Yeah. But since few years, we have been very busy. As I think in the beginning, menstrual hygiene in the Federation was taken only by wash department or wash unit. Now, since few years, we are linking very close, as I say before, with protection, gender, and inclusion. We are linking very close as well with our colleagues of reproductive health, of community-based health, and as well with our cash colleagues. So 2018 was quite active. We have done our first webinar. We have launched our first video for advocacy as well in 2018. In October, we have done our global workshop in Lebanon, where not only internal or Red Cross people were participating, it were as well external. Columbia University, INA from Was United was there, Oxfam, and many other important and relevant organizations working with menstrual hygiene. We have done as well a case study about solid waste in Bangladesh in October 2018, where our colleague Chelsea went there to investigate what is happening in solid waste in the operation of Bangladesh. And in December 2018, finally, we launched the second video. This is the video, it's a video for training. It was developed to strengthen the capacity internal of and external on menstrual hygiene. We will not show the video, but we will show you, we will forward to you the link. And then we launched finally our new guideline and tools. What are the guidelines for? They are for program and operational managers. It's Red Cross and Red Crescent specific. We don't want to duplicate existing global guidelines. There are very interesting guidelines already and very strong from Columbia University and RCRC. We have as well the menstrual hygiene managed matters from Toolkit, from WaterAid. We don't want to duplicate them. We want only to adapt and be specific for the Red Cross. These guidelines are aligned with the hygiene promotion in emergency guidelines. So they are aligned with the 8 steps of the guideline from hygiene promotion. And it's developed, in the beginning was developed for the humanitarian context, but we see that it's as well very useful for long-term programs too. So what is included in the guideline is menstrual hygiene basic, what and why, selecting and training Red Cross volunteers for menstrual hygiene, clarifying as well hygiene versus dignity kit versus menstrual hygiene kit, the slide that I showed you before. And it's a step-by-step action for planning, implementing, monitoring of menstrual hygiene in humanitarian context. We have as well 13 practical tools that are on Word document and they are online. This is what it doesn't include, so we move forward. As I say, we have 13 practical tools. The tools can be adapted and used in your operation or programming. They are on the Federation website and Watson Mission Assistant in Word format. Yeah, so you can really, it's a live document. So if you use them and see something is missing, not clear, needs to be improved, please let us know and give us feedback. The plan is for several, for example, in several operations to pilot the guide and tools in the coming months and years, but we need also to have your feedback. So, how to scale and promote for wider adoption? Some of you already have already joined the community of practice of menstrual hygiene, but the ones who still didn't have joined, this platform is for sharing experience from menstrual hygiene and wants as well to equip participants with resources and practical tools. So all the tools that we are talking during this webinar in this community of practice in the resource part. And we encourage as well all the participants and members of this community of practice to be very active, yeah, because we want to have questions and we want as well to be active, including and sharing your experience. We have as well the Watson Mission Assistant, and when you go to the Watson Mission Assistant, you have in the Public Health Watch a special page for menstrual hygiene management, where you don't need to be a member, it's an open source. You can go there and download as well all the information without being a member. And there's no chat there, but it's only to downloading external and internal documents that are relevant. What is next for us? We are planning to do an online course for capacity building of internal and external practitioners. We want as well to trial the guides and tools, as I already say, by using real life experience and adjusting to different contexts. And we missed that. We want as well to do more programs about WASH and disability and inclusion, and this is linked to what Mina and Sophie were mentioning before. And we want as well to do cash for menstrual hygiene by collecting evidence and best practice in this area. And as I say, the community of practice, we want really to continue sharing experience and knowledge. So this is my presentation. We don't have time for questions again. It's sharp 1 minute to 10. Please forward to us your questions on the chat, and we will compile them and answer in a Word document. Thank you all for your attendance. And Margarita, on the name of Margarita, Letizia, and myself, see you in next webinar soon. Thank you. Bye. Thank you.